Hi everyone, Teddy here. So I asked the question on different social channels, including Instagram, Facebook, as well as Twitter. What are some of the questions you have for me about watches? And I decided I want to go through some of those here today. I have about, I think, 9 here. So we'll go through those in this video. So with the holiday season here, I did want to let you guys know about some cool promos that we have going on teddybaldassarre.com. So first off, we're going to be doing a free strap with any purchase over $250. So how this is going to work, if you pay over $250 on your order, you will get any strap up to $25 with your purchase for free. Just add the watch, add the strap, just get everything in there into your cart, and then use promo code STRAP250. Then you also, if you spend over $500, would have the opportunity to get a strap up to $50 for free with your purchase. Just use promo code STRAP500. Say you spend over $1,000, get any strap up to $100 free with your purchase by using promo code STRAP1000. And if you purchased over $2,000, you get any strap for free with your purchase by adding promo code STRAP2000. You just have to add the strap, also have all the other items in your cart to exceed that dollar amount, and then it will automatically be applied. So ensure that you have the promo for that designated dollar amount, as well as making sure that you have a strap in there as well. It won't just automatically pop in there. You have to actually pick out the strap, add it to your cart, and then that promo will be applied after that promo code is submitted. And this is just a temporary promo. We're only gonna be doing this for about a week or so. If inventory runs out, then that will also be when we are going to end this promo. So definitely act fast before it is too late. And secondly, for any person that purchases anything from our site, from now until the end of 2022, the end of the year, you will get invited to our private live stream where I'll be hanging out, answering some questions. What I also wanted to do is have a few of my colleagues join this as well to give some of their areas of expertise and talk about some of these subjects. One will be Will Bethune. He heads all our photography here at the company and is honestly a master of it. So if you want to learn a little bit from him, he'll be talking about some of the just hidden secrets that he has and tips. Also, we'll have Ben Lowry, who previously, before being a video content manager for us, was actually a commercial diver. So he'll talk about maybe just debunking some of the dive watch just jargon and branding in the industry on what it actually takes to have a dive watch that will be suitable for diving. And also Mark Bernardo, he has all of our editorial content on the website, formerly at Watch Time, and also wrote a book called Airtime, basically going over everything you need to know about pilot watches. So he'll be sharing a little bit of that just expertise he has in that realm of pilot watches. So all of that, a lot more. If you want to partake in that, just buy something from the site. You'll get an email from us as we enter the new year, and we'll have more details on that. And I know you can buy a watch pretty much anywhere during the holiday season, but we'd love to have your business. For us, how we're able to make all this content happen, we don't charge the brands to make this content. How we're able to do it is through sales on teddybaldassarre.com, and we'd love to have your business. Also, in addition to that, love to see you in that live stream next year. Guys, back to the video. Now for our first question here, we have, will Rolex continue to go down in terms of price, or will there be a next hype bubble with next year's releases? So really quickly, let's just talk about Rolex in general, what's been going on with the secondary market, because I assume that's what you're talking about, of course. In general, on some of the most hype pieces, you are seeing a downturn in terms of the value. I would say across the board on certain select models like the Daytona, you're looking at around 15 to 20% downturn. At the time of recording this video for the 116-500LN, asking prices seem to be around $25,000 to $30,000. That was a watch that peaked out around April of this year, around $45,000 to $48,000 for listing prices and some closed actual sales. So things have definitely taken a significant downturn across the board. Now, the Daytona is the extreme example of most of Rolex's models, but it seems like across the board, talking about 15 to 20%. Also looking at the Rolex GMT Master 2, Pepsi on a Jubilee, you're talking about under $20,000 just a few months ago, earlier this year. You were talking about that watch being in the mid, say $25,000 range for some of those better examples. So the question is, are we going to continue to see this go down? I don't think we've necessarily reached the floor personally. I don't find any joy in saying this, despite me loving the fact that all of this hype bubble is starting to dissipate finally. I like how there's going to be actual watch enthusiasts getting watch enthusiast watches. That's what I care about. I buy watches because I love them. If you want the industry to thrive, you do want a component of this to continue to be kind of going. You want watches to be front and center. You want people to be buying them. So this isn't necessarily all good, but I do think we're going to continue to see a correction here. So in general, what I think is probably going to happen, I think you're going to see still a continued dip in Rolex. I don't know how much. I'm not trying to give investment advice. That's not what I'm doing here, but I do think it's going to continue to go down. You have the Fed increasing the interest rate. You have now a lot of dealers who are no longer taking those quick leaps at buying new product or buying Rolex product because those margins were always thin to begin with. Now, when you're talking about things might go down even more, when you're playing in this danger zone of 5 to 10% margin to try to flip a watch, that's a dangerous game to be playing because it doesn't take much to affect the entire market. Say you buy something 10 to 15% over the retail price, it dips an additional 10%. You're kind of left holding the bag. So dealers are not going to take that risk. You're talking about increased interest rates. Also with less flippers, you're going to see more retail opportunities. So I do think there's going to be more of a correction. I don't think things are going to just plummet. I think Rolex in general, compared to a lot of different vehicles for retaining value, is doing pretty much on par with most things. Look at the S&P 500 and what's going on there. It's not great either, but there's clearly a change that's happening. And I, as somebody who loves just people that are able to actually buy watches, I do think this is probably good for a lot of just watch enthusiasts who want to be able to get some of these watches. It gets out some of the people that are kind of doing this more fly-by-night type of activity and allows people that actually want the watches to really own them. So I'm a big proponent of that, but let's not get it twisted. When there is this hype, it does typically mean good things for the industry, I would say, across the board, because it makes watches relevant, it gets people talking. So I do want to see the industry succeed. So I don't take any joy in this, other than the fact that I know that they're going to be actual watch enthusiasts and buyers will now be able to buy these products a little bit easier. And I've been hearing it more and more, people getting the call from their AD just by passing. So I think we are turning the corner, and I think it's going to continue to get a little bit better. I don't know how low the prices are going to go, but it does seem like we're going in that direction. Next question here is, as a blue collar guy who's well aware that I'm never going to own a Patek Nautilus, what are some sub 5K options that would fill the void? I love the shape and size of the case and the shape of the window. It's just aesthetically pleasing. So a few places that I would look, I mean, we can kind of just go up the ladder. I think you'll mention the Tissot PRX as being an obvious choice. That's under $1,000 is a great option. Then you can jump up to right above $1,000, look at something like the Formex Essence. Has some of the same type of idea. You could also look at the Formex Reef, which is more of a dive watch, but it has that protruding element on the 9 o'clock side of the case, which I think mirrors the Nautilus, of course. So if you do like the look of that, you might like the case shape. That could be something you could go for. Tudor Royal, the offering of that integrated style from Tudor that just kind of looks the part. Not really much of the Nautilus there, but enough where I could say, hey, it might have some crossover that might interest you. A couple other options would be FC with their High Life. This watch hasn't gotten a ton of attention, but I do think it's a well-constructed package from the sports watch category for around $2,000 to $3,000, and they have a wide variety of different options in terms of complications. But if you want to keep it under $5,000, probably go for the traditional 3-hand. You also could go for the Baume & Mercier Riviera. You could go for the Baumatic version with that 5-day power reserve, or for the Solita option to save some money, so up to you. And then also, just as kind of the out there pick, if you really wanted to stretch out your budget, you probably could go pre-owned for some of the discontinued Zenith DeFi models. Those watches are simply fantastic. Now that they've brought in the new Skyline, you could then go for some of those older iterations, which I think are simply beautiful. So those are a few options I'd recommend. Next question is, what do you think about watch subscription services that give you a watch every month for a fixed monthly fee and enter you in a drawing for a high-end watch? Is it worth it? So, I get the business model. Now, I'm gonna answer this for my own personal taste on watches. Now, what I like about watches, what I like about collecting watches, what I like about just watches as a hobby, as a collector, is the hunt. I like to look for thinking about my own personal taste, having this evolving personal taste that I can go ahead and utilize to try to find the best watch for me. So I enjoy the shopping, the hunt. All of that is part of the equation of why I love watches. What these subscription services do is they kind of remove that, which as a consumer goes completely against everything that I stand for as a consumer. So would I personally use one? No, but I think this subscription model could work for some people out there. And I would say for most people watching this, isn't going to make much sense. I like to eliminate the clutter. I like to know what I'm buying. I like to know what I'm doing with my money. I think these business practices they're perfectly fine. They're ethical. They're great for a lot of different categories. But for me in watches, I see it as a very personal buying experience. I like very specific things, and I want to be able to control that process. To have somebody else making the decisions for me, it's just not something I need. I don't need someone to remove that struggle, because it's not a struggle for me. It's actually the part of the excitement of buying a watch. So, all these subscription service, I think they're absolutely fine. It seems like they're good businesses. I've interacted with some of the businesses that do this, and I think they're good people behind them for the most part. In terms of the Rolex type of thing where you can get that with your subscription, just kind of see that for what it is. It's kind of like a lottery type of system. You're most likely not going to win that. But in terms of just my own personal approach to collecting, these subscription services don't really work for me. If they work for you, that's fine. I just have my own thought process of why I like to collect watches. So you'll have to just kind of determine that for yourself. But that's my take. I would never personally go about subscribing to one. Guildzilla asks, how much should accuracy matter in mechanical watches under $1,000? In general, it matters, but one thing I have noticed is the people that have the highest expectations on accuracy are typically the people that are spending the least amount of money on watches. And I do think that if you care about having the most precise watch possible, maybe avoid mechanical watches altogether, or at least have the right expectations. Expectations for everything set the level of happiness that you're going to have. I believe that in all facets of life. If you're dealing with customer service, when we're dealing with customer service on TeddyBaldassarre.com, I always tell people, on our team, hey, get the right expectation in front of the customer. If it's going to take 5 days to get them the product, say it's going to take 6 days, because if it gets there in say 3 days, then everybody's happy, everyone's ecstatic. But if you say, hey, it's going to get there in 2 days and it gets there in 3 days, it's not going to be a good end solution for that person because they were given the expectation that it was going to be better. The same thing could be said for watch movements. Most people just have unrealistic expectations of watch movements, especially at an affordable range. The reality is, looking at Miyota, Seiko, even entry-level Swiss movements, the accuracy is a wide range, typically. I'm pulling up here some of just the ranges of deviation from Miyota 8 series movements. You're talking about -20 to +40 seconds a day. Miyota 9 series, -10 to +30 seconds a day. Seiko NH35, -20 to +40 seconds a day. So essentially the equivalent to the Miyota 8 series of movements. And then for ETA 2824, it's a Swiss-made, automatic, reliable, widespread and ubiquitous as you're going to find in the Swiss watchmaking market. ±12 seconds per day, up to ±30 seconds a day. For different grades, of course, they'll have better performance. If you're talking about a chronometer grade, going to far exceed that. But still, this, I think, allows us to have a better conversation about this. Yes, it matters, but make sure that you're not demanding too much. If you get a Citizen watch and it is running, say, 25 to 30 seconds off in perfect time of day, sure, is it the most accurate watch in the world? No, but it is in the range of spec that they would say and deem as appropriate. They're giving you the information of what you should expect for that watch. So I think people need to look at owning a mechanical watch as almost going for a specific type of car. If it's almost like saying, okay, hey, I want a muscle car. I want it to be affordable, and I also want it to be fuel efficient. You can't have these opposing ideas kind of going at each other. Do you want to lean into the mechanics of the thing, or do you want to lean into the function of the thing? If you care about the function, go for a smartwatch, go for a quartz watch. If you want that utility, if you want kind of the romanticized idea, which I would imagine most people going for mechanical watch one, just have the right expectations for yourself on what is actually possible. That's all I will say for under $1,000 for mechanical watches. Next, we have building a relationship with your AD. How can I build a genuine and healthy relationship with an AD to get the Rolex of my dreams and convince them that I am passionate about the piece? There's a lot of misleading info on YouTube about this. So in general, and now I know some people are gonna be like, okay, I don't wanna play the games with the ADs. Let's first establish the fact of why do they do this? Why are there games with ADs? Now there are just some, let's be blunt. I mean, there are just some horrible ADs out there that play these stupid games. It's an elitist mentality. They can all go to hell. But for the ones that are trying to navigate this very delicate subject of trying to get somebody a Rolex watch, and it is a delicate subject, and the reason why is Rolex will actually secret shop these ADs. And what they're doing is they're looking for any lapse, they're looking for any different authorized dealer that is going to be making mistakes and selling watches to the wrong person. What an AD needs to do is ensure, okay, they need to have a book of business and sell the watches. But also what has happened with all of the surge of Rolex has been, you now have to run the risk of selling to a flipper. They do not want to sell to a flipper. They want to build and get this watch to a customer that they know is not going to go out the back door and try to sell it on the secondary market. The reason why is because that, if you do it enough, Rolex, if they figured out you're doing this, and even if you don't have malicious intent, it could mean bad standing for your Rolex account. So ADs have to be very careful about this. And this is why they walk that line. They want to make sure that you're buying this for the right reasons. Not to say all of them are doing this. Some of them will have their elite just kind of mentalities of how they favor certain buyers versus others, but they also want peace of mind. And that's another thing that they're considering when deciding if they want to sell you the watch versus somebody else. If I was going to give recommendations on what to do, and as I mentioned in that first question, I think things are becoming more possible to get a watch from Rolex at an authorized dealer. Number one is show face. Don't be the type of person that just calls and calls and calls. You can do that, but I think you also want to show face first. Show that you're a real person, show that you're in the area. People ultimately want to sell, I think, locally, and that's so much a part of the Rolex model. If you're somebody that's flying in or you need to fly in, I think you're already playing from behind. Try to find the most local AD and show face again and again. And when you become a real person, you become a real possibility, I think, to buy the watch. And it allows you just to connect with them a little bit more on a personal level. I'm the same way. If I can have a meeting in person and it doesn't create a huge amount of havoc, I will absolutely do it because I think it allows me to present myself. You see the mannerisms, you see how somebody interacts. That is absolutely, I think, the first thing that you need to do. I think you also need to go to the right dealer. If you're fortunate enough to be in a metropolitan area with a couple doors, go to a couple of them. See which one you think you would vibe with more. Try to get a dealer that is going to be transparent. Not all of them are like this, but you can at least see that there's some integrity behind them. Not everyone's going to have that, but see if you can be selective in where you're going to look to really lean in and show face and try to be a good customer as much as you want them to be a good dealer to you. Consider trying to buy something else. Now, I don't think you want to get off the path, but if you're really committed on getting something that is, say, really sought after, like a Daytona, there's a lot of other people that are going to be fighting for that watch alongside of you. So you're probably going to have to play the game. They're going to give that to their best customers. And would you blame them if you were getting allocation for, say, maybe a few every once in a while? Like, I mean, you're going to give that to the people that leave the best impression. It's like getting a job in a way. I know people don't want to hear this, but this is the truth. They'd only get so many pieces. They can only give it to so many people. So you have to kind of separate from the competition. One way, of course, is the wallet, but that is not the only way. The other thing that I would do and just say is, I love this watch. I want this watch. And you could say that I am not a flipper. Look them in the eye and say that. And I think that could give them a lot of peace of mind in just knowing that I am buying this for the right reason. I show face. I want to get this watch. And you just address the absurdity of what you're asking for at the beginning. Not to say that you have to kiss ass, because I don't think you need to necessarily do that, but you just come off as a real person. I think this is becoming more and more of a real possibility for people to get these type of watches. Just be real, show face. Ultimately, I think that's the best thing you can possibly do. Next question is asking, is there some truth behind wearing a $100 watch and not really caring about it versus wearing a $10,000 watch and always being concerned about what could happen to it? Wearing a watch versus letting the watch wear you. I think this is absolutely true. A couple things I will say. I typically always recommend to people to maximize their budget, but there's a point where you are going beyond your means and are wearing a watch that is wearing you, not the other way around. And how I would always look at this is, and this is not investment advice and you don't have to necessarily follow it, but it's a game of ratios. You want to think about your total net worth and what you are putting into the watch that you're wearing on your wrist. If you're one of those people that doesn't have a bed frame but has a Rolex on your wrist, yeah, you're probably gonna be paranoid as hell that you're gonna damage or scratch your watch. I mean, honestly, that scratch is, there goes a percentage point of your net worth. So you wanna make sure that your ratios are in alignment. And one other thing that I would say in addition to all this is, say you take your watch and imagine you just, put it in the driveway, put it on your desk, and you just put lighter fluid, set it on fire. Of course, you might be mad, but does it change your circumstance as an individual? Are you going to be able to eat tonight? is if these are the type of, ask yourself these questions, because if you have any additional financial strain, other than just being mad, because even if I set this Hamilton khaki field mechanical on fire, I'm gonna be mad, even though I can't afford it. But even with that being the case, I do think you need to identify like, how much is this going to hurt me? Does it put any strain on my financial situation, my well-being? If that's the case, do not do it. Think about your ratios, think about what you can afford, and enjoy the watch, because if you can't experience the watch, there's no point in owning it. Andrew asks, what are the top 5 most impactful movements in the last 50 years? So this is an interesting question, and I think the obvious ones that come to mind first are something like the ETA 2824. It's the most ubiquitous Swiss watch movement on the planet. You could also look at the Valjoux 7750 from a chronograph side, same type of idea. So we're talking about 1972 to beyond here. So anything that happened in 1969 with like the El Primero, different chronograph movements from that era, the Seiko Astron, you couldn't look at anything like that. So this does make it more recent history. I think you have to put the Grand Seiko spring drive in here in terms of utilizing technology and taking mechanical energy, tri-synchro regulator to create this perfect effortless flow of movement and self-regulation. It's a marvel of a movement. I have a whole video on why that watch movement is so special. You of course need to include Dr. George Daniels in his creation of the coaxial escapement. I would say in terms of adoption from a mass market perspective, you look at those Omega 2500 calibers with that coaxial escapement, but Dr. George Daniels certainly gets the, of course, kudos there for producing that escapement, and one of the, I would say, probably biggest watchmaking developments of the last century. So I think you have to include something like that. A couple out there picks, the L951 from the Dotograph in 1999. That movement to me is one of the most beautiful chronograph movements in the world. It set the stage when many of the other brands in the Swiss industry were using Lemania-based movements. Then here comes Lange as a brand that just came back in 1994. They just dropped this on the table, and this is even before Richemont took over, and they were able to produce something like that. That was something that I think woke everybody up to manual, mechanical chronograph movements. I think you could also consider something like the UN Freak, and what that movement was able to do, both from a mechanical perspective, but also from the adoption of silicon components. That was, I think, a big theme of the 21st century in watchmaking. And we've seen this now time and time again as being a huge contributing factor or a huge attribute that brands are quick to mention. You could also talk about the 3135 from Rolex. There's more that I now am thinking about that I think you need to bring up into the conversation, but those are just some that come to mind quickly when you're looking at the last 50 years. And for our last question, we have Peter, and he asks, when you're interested in buying a new watch, is it something you research and sleep on for days, or is it a rather quick decision to make the purchase? I've used both methods and have been extremely satisfied, and I also wish I would have taken more time on the decision. So this is certainly one of those things where I'll say, do as I say, not as I do, because I have certainly done the same thing. I have made the impulse buys. Some have been catastrophic, some have been absolutely fine and actually turned out to be pretty solid purchases. But would I recommend doing that? No, I don't think it's a good idea to impulse buy in most instances. At least sleep on it for a day. Make sure that it is love, not lust, and make sure that you are able to really identify, do you want to obtain this watch? Think about it, sleep on it, do your research. I've talked about this many, many times on the channel. Again, go back to that idea about ratios too, whether I think if you're talking about a really big purchase that's stretching you out, make a pros and cons list. I've actually done this for buying a luxury watch before. You talk about, what's the upside of owning this piece? What's the downside of owning this piece? Whenever I'm making a big decision, I always do this. I will just make a pros and cons. I know it sounds really silly, but it does help me out and it makes me feel better in my decisions. And when you're dealing with that in like business or any big life decision, I think it's the best thing to do possible. I don't think an impulsive purchase is a bad thing if you feel like you're going to miss out on an opportunity. Say it's a limited edition piece, you have to act fast. If you have known that you wanted a watch from this brand, you see something new pop up, you might have to act fast. Just make sure your ratios are in place. Don't make a habit of impulse buying all the time. If you see something you like, make sure you continue to like it. There's a saying that goes, impulse exalts folly. Don't be that type of person. Make sure that you actually truly love something before you decide to buy it. Sleep on it. I think that's generally a good idea in more circumstances than not. All right, guys, that is some answers to your questions. If you enjoyed the video and you want me to continue to do this in the future, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. Really would appreciate that as well. Also, definitely check out teddybaldassarre.com in that new strap promo that we have on the site. That's only for a limited time, so definitely act fast while you still can. Inventory will just kind of be the dictating factor on whether or not how long we keep this going for, but I assume probably just around a week. So act now, check it out in the description down below. And also with any purchase, you will also get an invitation to our private live stream set to happen next year. Probably in January or February. We'll lock in the final date as things approach, but we'll just send you an email about when that's happening. So pretty cool opportunity. I wanted to kind of just have more of a personal connection with people that, interact with us and, just kind of make it more of an open book on what we're doing, who's, behind the scenes here and how this all happens. So that was kind of my goal with this. I don't know if there's gonna be any interest in it, but something I wanted to try as we head into the new year. But guys, thank you again so much for watching. Be well, and I'll see you all very soon.